Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another video. Welcome to Scorpio season. In this video, I want to give you, I guess I'm going to call it Scorpio season survival tips because a big feature of the sun being in Scorpio this time around will be the Mars-Pluto opposition. And that's going to be the aspect that's going to get a lot of talk moving forward. But I want to help you work with this aspect in a constructive way as opposed to being fearful of it or feeling it's going to be nothing more than the harbinger of doom, although that's also possible. Anyway, I'd also like to take a moment to thank new subscribers. I've had quite a boost to this channel, so I really do appreciate that. No doubt you'll hear from the recent horoscope videos I've done. If you've not seen that, I have got a playlist called Astrology 2025 or something like that, or maybe Horoscopes 2025, where I've got all of those 12 videos for each sign. So you're always welcome to refer back to those, particularly as these big planets transition into their new signs next year. So it might be a helpful reference for you. So I've just written up a whole bunch of notes. I've just finished doing readings all day, and now I am going to help you navigate through this big transit. So if you would, actually, speaking of readings, if you want to book one, I do have some appointments available for November. So you'll probably be able to get in for that. There's a link below where you can book in for that. Alrighty, so let's get started on the good stuff. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to show you what this aspect is all about. So I've chosen the New York time zone because obviously this aspect is going to definitely be a big major player in some of the political situations that are happening in a particular country right now. So here we've got that Mars-Pluto opposition perfecting on the 3rd of November. Now, this is the first of three of a series of oppositions between Mars and Pluto. The first one happens just in a couple of weeks, and that's obviously at 29 Cancer Capricorn. We'll have a second one, and that will be January 3. And by that stage, Pluto has gone back into Aquarius, and Mars would have reached Leo. And then, of course, Mars will retrograde through Cancer. It'll come back to Leo and eventually hit Pluto again. And that's going to happen on April 26. So, this is the first of a series of oppositions we're going to be experiencing between these two planets. So, case in point here is that this is not a one-hit wonder transit. The events that are kind of permeating now are going to ricochet right through till April, which is also when Mars, eventually leaves Leo. So the whole Mars retrograde in Cancer, its return to Leo is also going to be infiltrated, if you like, by this aspect. Now, as I'm recording this, it's October 24th. The moon has just not long slipped into Leo. So we have just had the Cancer moon come through and hit Mars, make that monthly conjunction with Mars, and sort of activated this aspect already. The moon's just come along, it's pinged Mars, and whoa, it was a day, let me tell you. So you might even already be starting to feel some of the rumblings, the inklings, the intuitions, or even events in your own life that is really going to be that little bit of oh, I think I know what this one might be about for me. So when we're thinking about Mars Pluto just as a planetary archetype, what we're going to really think about is this idea of deep, deep rage. Mars is a planet of anger, of aggression, of agitation, and Pluto is that dark lord that speaks to everything that is buried or under the earth, the things that are unseen, and unhidden. So as these two planets oppose, they're vying for dominance across the sky. So we are going to see definitely aggression. I think the word unhinged is probably going to become redefined over the course of these aspects, in particular when we're talking about the Cancer variety of this dynamic. So, when we're thinking about emotional outbursts, aggression, agitation, that is going to not only redefine the word unhinged, but quite possibly we're going to see a lot of adult temper tantrums. Mars and Pluto are very destructive, they're very violent, and we are, unfortunately, there's definitely potentiality to see violence, abuse, and atrocities. And, let's not sugarcoat this, these things are happening already. We're probably just going to see that even more as this aspect comes through. So, we can, I don't want to sound like I'm Pollyannaing all of this, but when we bring these energies to the personal life, sometimes it's not until something bad happens to us or something that we would rather not experience that we can channel all of that emotion and try and transmute that into something that's very healing or potentially transformational. So as this aspect occurs, we'll see hang on, let me just bring this back up again so we can see it. So what happens here with this dynamic is that we'll have the moon, who Mars is looking for guidance and support, is just passing an aspect from Mercury. It's going to conjoin Venus and it's then going to oppose Jupiter. Now, on the day of the American election, I'll just fast forward this a little bit. The moon will quickly move into Capricorn. Now, I don't know what time the polls would open to be able to start voting in the US, but say, for example, I'd imagine 9 a.m. would probably be a reasonable time for that. The moon will soon move into Capricorn very shortly, early morning, and therefore it is going to sort of set off these events. The moon, of course, Mars, of course, has already moved into Leo by that stage. So that's just a little bit of an update from uh, what's happening also, not only the Mars Pluto opposition, but how that's also feeding into the energy of those other Mars Plutos that are to come. So, as I said, we are definitely going to see a lot of emotions coming up to the surface. And this can be stuff that's buried within us that we didn't even know was a thing. We didn't even know was something that we had to deal with. So, sometimes we can have an event, a situation comes around, and it can bring up stuff that's really deep within us that we thought, oh, that was healed, that was past, this doesn't affect me anymore. And then all of a sudden, boom, here it is, kind of thing. So the thing is with Mars in Cancer, I have done a deep dive on Mars in Cancer in my YouTube channel, and that video is called Working with Astrology's Worst Planet because it often has that reputation. But there's more helpful ways to work with Mars in Cancer in that video. Now, Mars in Cancer, one of the problems or the shortcomings that it does have is that it will tend to operate based on feelings as opposed to logic. So we're sort of dealing with Mars, who has kind of got the capacity of a 2-year-old, impulsive, lacks control, emotional outbursts, mood swings, things of that nature. And when we are dealing with the sign of Cancer, I'm a Cancerian, so I'm going to say it. We do have an inbuilt emotional accounting system. So we keep the score in our minds, even if we don't believe that we do. It's just we have good memories. We have good emotional memories. We may not be able to describe what happened, but we remember the feelings. And so Mars comes along and pokes and prods and goads all of that. Pluto then, of course, sets it off. Then things can come from a very deep place that we didn't even know we still held feelings for, about, etc. So all that buried rage, all the slights that have come up, all the times you've turned a blind eye, that old issues type of stuff can definitely be a thing. Now, as this aspect perfects over the next several days, Mars technically isn't retrograde yet, though it's in the vicinity. So when Mars is trining the sun, we know that Mars is going to start to enter its retrograde phase, or say, you're starting to oppose the sun. Obviously, that's going to be a little ways yet, but we're in that vicinity. So in some respects, Mars will be harnessing some of those maverick qualities as it starts to approach its retrograde phase. Mars is already a little bit of a planet of everything that's alternative or disruptive. That's one of the key words that we use for Mars. It's very disruptive. And even its cycle is. It has a 2-year cycle. It retrogrades just once every 2 years. And so it's very dysregular compared to other planets. It doesn't even have a sort of a regular beat or a regular rhythm in the way that it retrogrades. So Mars, particularly when retrograde, we're just getting this extra renegade quality of a wild, reckless, unpredictable type of energy there. In the ancient Scandinavian, Viking sagas, we have a Viking that's not just a regular Viking or a regular warrior, but he's a berserker. So someone that will possibly be enhanced in some way, and is bigger than everybody else, and he, fights like an animal, but he only has a small burst of energy. It's a bit like in Australia, if you want to outrun a crocodile, don't do it in a straight line, do it in a zigzag, and you will wear out the beast faster. And this is how Mars retrograde works too, is that energy can really peak and trough. You can be all guns blazing one day, and then another, smack the wall kind of thing. So we put that energy, and obviously Mars is not retrograde just yet, but we put that energy under the house of the moon, and the moon is already a fluctuator. She's already up and down. She brings the tides in and she brings the tides out. So in short, we're dealing with a very bad-tempered, very unpredictable, very volatile version of Mars. And it's sensitive too, so it is going to be reactive. It is that walking on eggshells type of energy. So if you're feeling irritated, if you're feeling agitated, or feeling like you're going to get set off, just that simple embracing the pause, breathing, ask yourself, what am I learning here? What is this higher level message that I'm being sent from the universe, so to speak? So you may have started to experience that already, where you can feel that sort of waters rage within you, or you might start to feel that your fuse is a little shorter than normal. It can be really helpful, especially when we're talking about Scorpio season, who really, Scorpio wants to dig deeper, and it wants to, get into the nooks and crannies of things that we might otherwise rather avoid or deny. But Scorpio wants to bring everything up and out, and Mars in Cancer wants to stay very comfortable in the shell. So do ask yourself, what is this situation informing of? What am I feeling within my body? What am I, that we can control our reactions a little bit more like in that way, as opposed to Mars in Cancer being reactive. We can train ourselves to be responsive. And more often than not, we're going to be putting ourselves in a better position to respond to a situation as opposed to react. Now, if you're Australian, you'll get this joke. I do like to tell a joke every now and then. Um, Mars in Cancer is going to really help you feel in your waters. So it's a comedy show that we used to have here called Kath and Kim. And I can't quite get the accent right, but she would say, I'll feel it in my waters. But anyway, and that's what Mars in Cancer really brings us down to, that primal survival energy, very instinctive, very intuitive, and being able to really embrace that fight, flight, or sometimes even freeze response. So, this could really agitate or aggravate a situation in your life that's as far back as Pluto's first ingress back in 2008. I think we might have had fraction of Pluto and Capricorn in 2007, but from memory, it's 2008. So we've all been through this massive Pluto and Capricorn journey for the last 15 or so years. So you might want to start thinking about the house topic that Pluto is for you. Where have those power dynamics really played out for you in terms of control, manipulation, the power dynamics? Where have you felt that you've been disempowered in some situations, so you can then reclaim some of that power. So that's something to think about too. Are old wounds that you thought were kind of healed, are they being reopened somewhat as this transit perfects? And again, it is Scorpio season, so we sort of have to face and lift the lid on some of those scary things that we might otherwise not want to address when we're dealing with these kind of sensitive aspects and topics too. Now, there's also some benefic blessings in this configuration, and that is because if we really break this down, hang on, I've got to go back a little bit now because I fast forwarded to look at the actual election day for a sec. So I'm just going to bring this back. Um, Now, so this is when we have Mars and Pluto actually doing their thing. We've got Mars is looking to the moon, and the moon's in Sag. The moon's co-present with Venus and opposing Jupiter. So we do have a little bit of a benefic influence here. Now, Scorpio season always tends to, I call it a little bit of the go deep or go home season, where we do have to address some of the skeletons in the closet. We have to address some of the things that are a little bit messy, a little bit uncomfortable, or we may not want to face. Scorpio planets, and if you have one, I'm sure you can attest to this, is they don't like to stay at the surface level of things. And so we have to go a little bit deeper during this season. And so while this is an off-axis benefic influence, they are attempting, in my opinion, to try and raise the tide or trying to um, lend support, lend help, or see the silver lining in a situation that might be otherwise quite difficult. So we're talking about, there's the influence of Mercury here. We've got the moon and Venus in Sagittarius, and then Jupiter in Gemini. So really, there's going to be themes of communication that are going to be a part of this Pluto-Mars dynamic. It could be communication, information, disinformation as well. On the personal level, this might be, where do I need to change my perspectives on a particular issue or a particular piece of information? If I find myself reacting or negatively responding, potentially even to a situation, that's the moment to sort of stop and think, is there another way I can approach this? Is there another perspective I've not yet gleaned, or is there another point of view I've yet to consider? Now, yeah, we're dealing with oppositions here. So if you're a little bit kind of stuck in the, oh, but it's an opposition, and oppositions of the, said to be of the nature of Saturn, etc., etc. I don't really dislike an opposition as an aspect because at least these two planets are kind of working from the same axis. So, as far as the benefics are concerned, they are in really strong communication, as are Mars and Pluto. So we've got a very strong benefic influence, Venus and Jupiter. And then, of course, I'm sure we can all agree that Mars, well, Mars definitely is, but Pluto is definitely more of a malefic to experience. It's sort of a bit of both, but usually the malefic energy comes and then we feel the more benefic. So when we're talking about oppositions, there, we've got two planets are sort of vying for dominance. And we could even see that politically, right? That there's, one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, and they're both trying to vie for dominance. But in some respects, they're very much on the same page, right? If you think about if you're just eating dinner at home with your partner every night, shoulder to shoulder, maybe you're next to each other, but you're probably not opposing each other. But when you go out, for a meal together, you're always going to sit opposite each other. So when you're face to face, you're better equipped and you're in a better position to be able to actually communicate better. So, this is the nature of the oppositions. That, of course, there's some tension with it. But when you're facing something or someone, you're more able to solve it or to reach a conclusion that's going to be helpful. And that's also, a little bit of the Scorpio stuff. We have to face things in order to fix things or heal things. And when we're thinking about this dynamic of the malefic opposition, the benefic opposition, it reminds me of the idea of, is happy to celebrate the good times. Everyone's your best mate when it's times are good. But really, it's in times of crisis, it's in times of difficulty, it's in times where things are moody, ugly, and unpleasant. That's when you really find who your people are. Now, that could be in terms of a one-on-one relationship, a marriage, maybe it's to do with friends or even a group or a community that you're involved with. Of course, you're going to need to sort of consider your own house positions in order to get a bit more of a personal read on that. And really, the best relationships are the ones that are forged in fire and they come out together with those beautiful benefic blessings. Um, so, another way to look at these configurations as a theme is the idea that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that's an interesting sort of quote or an idea that we can apply to Mars, Pluto, Venus, Jupiter. Because when we think about it, the world today seems to be more geared towards somebody's intentions as opposed to outcomes. What is good is ultimately, more often than not, what's hard, what's confronting, what is challenging, what is the difficult choice. It's the grind, it's the pain, it's the passion, it's the difficulties that are really what brings the blessings. The blessings, if we overdo those, then we start to take them for granted anyway, and then we'll cause troubles in our life, right? So no one comes to me as an astrologer in 20 years of doing this saying, "Hey, I've won the lotto and I've met the love of my life. What's going on?" It would be, "I've spent all my money and I've lost the love of my life," is when someone's more inclined to make a booking. So when I think about making the hard decision, which can be the right decision, when we're talking about a malefic opposition and a benefic opposition, if you personally find yourself sort of conflicted about making choices or about doing hard things as opposed to easy things, you might like a little bit of inspiration from one of my good friends. His name's Corey Taylor. You might know who I'm talking about. And the idea of the longest hours I've spent in my life are the ones I sit through to know that I'm right. So obviously it's a lyric from a song, but the idea here is that sometimes that Mars in Cancer, the Sun in Scorpio, that deep, deep feelings that you have to sit through alone, um, to make a difficult choice, to make, go through a hard road or a hard path to come out the other side with benefits and blessings. So, again, the idea of the hard thing is often the good thing. And so you might be struggling with a philosophical decision, whether it's to do with a relationship or a career path or even something financial. You might have to cut something or someone out of your life with that Mars Pluto in order to gain a blessing. Okay, so the hard thing isn't always the easy thing. Another idea I want to share with the idea of Mars Pluto is the idea of the mood of the people. Now, in mundane astrology, the moon is seen to be the mood of the people. So, if we cast, say, for example, an Aries ingress chart to get an idea of the sort of political situation of a particular country or what have you, the sign that the moon is in is going to tell you the mood of the people generally. Now, for a very long time, Mars is going to be occupying the mood, the sign that rules the mood of the people. So, because Mars is spending so long there, we can pretty much surmise here that the mood of the people for many months is not going to be particularly friendly, at least on the collective scale. We're going to see anger at the minimum, uh, angst, and that's definitely probably going to be against each other, which just tends to be what happens, but also really it's against power. I think we'll probably see bickering among the people, Mars and Pluto along the Cancer Capricorn axis. Then hopefully when it's the more Leo Aquarius one, it'll be more people against the systems a little bit more. We'll see. Um, but we're definitely going to see, at least with this first iteration of Mars and Pluto, is perhaps some anger, some angst, aggression around topics that are related to perhaps children and mothers, vulnerable people, or vulnerable communities. We also have elections here in Australia, just state ones at this point. We'll have what do you call them? Federal elections next year. But even here in the state that I'm in, the woman's right to choose, I probably can't say the A word on YouTube, I don't know, but the woman's right to choose has become such a political issue. So, or at least a point, they say you can't and we're going to say you can. It's just really interesting that this, obviously even just in the state that I'm in, as well as the USA, it's such a deal. And yeah, it's just kind of weird that's still a thing. But anyway. And it reminds me of something I only heard the other day from Jordan Peterson, and he was speaking about, I wrote it down, when the image of the mother and the infant isn't kept sacred, societies die. And I thought, oh, isn't that really interesting how we've got this Mars Pluto opposition, Cancer Capricorn, under the energy of an election, and that is one of the big political points. So, so we might start to see some pushback on that, regardless of where you're positioned, personally or what your beliefs are. But again, coming into the benefic situation, we might have to change our perspective on a particular issue. Or I always thought this was where I stood on a certain issue, and now I need to sort of bring in more data, bring in more facts, and be open to a new way of thinking about things. Now, of course, this is also going to be in our personal lives as well. And the real blessing and the real benefit will be, how has your position or your stance on a situation changed since Pluto came into Capricorn in 2008? I know collectively we've all changed so much. The world has changed so much. But isn't this a very interesting way to finish off this last leg of Pluto and Capricorn with a sharp sword of Mars? and the emotions, the activations, and also things to do with children, with vulnerable people. What does security look like at every single level, from the home to the Pentagon? It seems to be all up on the table right now. So do reflect on some of these ideas and how that relates to your birth chart. So, say, for example, if this axis activates your fourth and 10th, how have the dynamics of family and career changed for you? If it's second and eighth, is it finance and the entanglements you share with other people? So there's so many more things I can say about this big aspect that's sort of toning, flavoring the whole Scorpio season this time around. But I'm going to leave it there for now. If you would love more information about how the astrology of November is shaping up, the Golden Circle is a really great place to do that. That's my astrology membership. You're welcome to join. There's an annual option and a monthly option. And I go through all of the aspects of the month, share my 20 years of doing this wisdom slash experience with you. And we do Q&A calls. We also do chart readings for a member every month. And we have a lot of fun there. So why not? And we can talk about things that we don't speak of here. So if you would like more information about that, it is in the description box below. So again, if you're still here, thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.